I'm Chase.
And I'm Timothy.
And this is Customer Service.
All right, buddy. Good morning, Vietnam.
Good morning.
As you might have already seen, we have, well, if you're looking at the podcast, you now know that we have a different setup than usual. And if you're hearing it, I'll bring him in just a moment. But we are Chaseless today.
Yep.
Chase is out sick with, according to him, some sort of Shakespearean level illness. I'm not discounting that he's ill, but I've never seen him use more flowery language than when describing this. And then when I ask him, hey, what do you think of this collection? He's like, it's cool. So I don't know what he's dealing with. Where everyone's been some kind of ill. Like you and I, okay, I'll bring you in real quick. So this is our newest employee, Cole. He has also been doing a lot of the podcast stuff for us, so it just was kind of an obvious, we'll just bring him in. Chase is gone. We were in a need of something. We didn't have a guest or anything planned, so now we have a guest. So welcome, Cole, to the podcast for not the first time, but first time in Chase's chair.
Yeah, being one-on-one. Yeah, I'm replacing Mr. Chase, Mr. Cheddar here today.
Do you have any podcast experience, like guest experience?
I have a little bit. I used to do editing for, my wife did a podcast for like a nonprofit.
Oh, cool.
It was like, it was in Boston, and I would like, speak in and kind of doing the same shit that I do like here. Making sure stuff sounds good, and I'm the producer of customer service right now. So now I'm in the hot seat.
Now you're in the hot seat. Well, it's it's a seat. We'll get into our normal stuff, but I figured it was important to start there. You and I were both some kind of version of this illness that's going around.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem to. Either didn't hit us the same, or we are a lot tougher than the rest of the team. One of the two. Yeah. So it's kind of been flowing through the team, which is great.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of people out lately, but Chase has been out for a few days now. So
and hopefully he'll be back. He was definitely cracking me up when I talked to him last.
He's fine. He'll be back by the end of the week. Yeah.
Well, and he was throwing up. I mean, I won't get too deep into it for the listeners, but
let him stand here with a skull and tell us all about it.
No, I mean, basically he had every symptom you can think of. That's what he's experiencing. And we had it like a week and a half ago. So it was, I don't know if like you guys got it, I got it.
It's also like that time of year. It could have all been from us passing around. It could have been totally separate.
Oh, exactly.
I feel like everyone I've known has been some kind of version of this, but the symptoms are all so random that I'm not sure what it could possibly be. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't know, dude. I don't know. I'm so sick of being off and on sick. I get it. I feel like most of my getting it is from having a kid who brings home all sorts of random stuff, and I feel like that's where it started, but I don't know how we've gotten where we're at now, because the symptoms that the other members of the team have described are very different than what I had. Yeah. And I had it kind of the least of everyone, I feel like. So I don't know.
I would agree with that, because to me, it's like, I feel like I have very similar to what Abby had.
Yeah,
it's really coughing, just kind of like nasty. You had it a little different. Yours was more head cold, but I highly recommend for the listeners that you should get prescription over-the-counter Sudafed. That saved my life.
Yeah. So this is already a vast difference between Chase telling us to drink orange juice and nothing else.
Just spiking his glucose and putting like 100 grams of sugar in them. But
it's going to be a wildly different experience having this conversation where I don't the premise of the podcast has really become, I say something normal, Chase answers the question or sort of the prompt in a way that I've never heard a human answer a question, and then I try to get to the bottom of what on earth made you think this way.
Yeah.
So this is more where I'm in agreement, so it's a little unusual for me, because normally we throw these things out and then he goes, I don't want to get into it, but you just drink a tea and then you're fine, except for his symptoms are so wildly harder than everyone else's. So I agree with you. I think you just have to go get it dealt with, or if you're going to rough it through, you got to be doing you got to do active stuff. Like if I don't feel like I'm like contagious, I try to sauna the shit out of it.
Yeah.
If I try to do that at home in the shower and just be in there as long as humanly possible, as hot as humanly possible.
Just get that shit out of you.
I boil pots of water sometimes and then take a bath and put that in the bath, so it's like a cauldron. And then I'll really like test the limits of what I think my body can handle heat-wise. Because in my mind, it's like if you just burn it out, that's basically what like having a fever is.
Yeah, exactly.
So if I can kind of get on top of it, in most cases, it predominantly takes care of it.
Yeah.
And then you just run tea through your system.
Yeah, get yourself a lot of fluids.
And I try to move around as much as I can, even if it hurts. Because I feel like if you also kind of convince yourself you're not sick, instead of talking about it, I really kind of, that's a little woo-woo, but I sort of believe in like just not giving into it mentally. So
I totally
that seems that works for me. I'm not sure if that's real, but
yeah. No, I feel like you have something about that too. Like I get it's like you could be woo woo, it could be like some pseudoscience bullshit, but I feel like it's like if you're like, oh my god, I'm so sick, and like you're just simmering in that fact that you're like, I feel like shit.
You've convinced yourself.
Yeah, you're just perpetuating. Where it's like I feel like when we were both sick, we both worked, and I was like
getting through it
exactly. Like,
and just to be clear, I like to tease Chase because I like to tease Chase, and he is very dramatic. But I will say like what they have sounds very different than what I had. So that's I'm not advocating for them to come to work, and I don't need anyone else getting more sick.
Yeah, no super spreading.
That being said, like I just sort of like I try to shake it off as much as possible. In fact, I feel like there was only one. The time I got like the early version of COVID, the first one I ever got, that one leveled me. Like truly just out. I don't remember 3 days. You know?
Yeah, no, that fucked me too.
And but I think that was it. That's the only one that's ever really taken me out. Yeah, I'm not a misser of work, even when it's probably not good for me to be there. I like a routine, so I just keep doing it. I just keep going. You know what I'm saying?
No, I get that. No, COVID, I get that. First COVID fucked me too.
It was nasty. And it was like a different thing.
Oh, it was horrible. Yeah. And I lived on the 3rd floor, is the top floor of my apartment, and like just to walk down to like pick up, like we were door dashing, just because it was like you had to do it right. Yeah. And I remember just walking up those stairs. It was like fucking doing a marathon. It was out of breath, like wheezing. Like it was horrible, dude.
I just remember waking. I would fall asleep and wake up and not know what time of day it was a lot, and it just felt because like I got it like as Abby and Gia went out of town for like a few days, like a long weekend, and I got it like right at the beginning, and then it's literally like I would like wake up and I'd be like, I don't know what time it is. I don't know. I don't know what day I'm on now, and it would just be like it's truly like 3 days I just sort of forget. Yeah, but it was in and out. I'll say that it didn't last long, but awful. So what's been going on with you? Normally this is what we do. So this is sort of the
little weekend update.
Did you have a nice weekend? You had a big day yesterday. To be fair,
I had a big. I'll start weekend, then I'm go to the day. But my sister lives out in KC, with her husband, and she's super pregnant. She's with child right now, and her due date's like end of February, beginning of March. So I basically just helped her put up a bunch of curtains, set up the crib.
Got it.
You know me. I like doing handy stuff, so it was like easy for me. And
is it older sister or younger sister?
Older sister.
Older sister.
She's like 29, about to be 30.
Okay.
And I'm excited. I'm excited to be an uncle. And Casey was fun. Had some bomb barbecue. Had some great Ethiopian food. Definitely.
Yeah, it's a cool place. Yeah. It's it's still in the middle of the country, so it takes a little while for them to get stuff. It's still just permeation level. In the middle of the country, but it's cool for the area.
Oh, I feel like even in some ways it has more like culture than Denver, because
it's not hard, but it
has more like it has more diversity of people. It has more food choices, and it's a little more developed from like a historical standpoint.
Denver feels new and old at the same time.
It's weird,
which doesn't make sense. Yeah,
and it's always dead. Like I remember. Like 16th Street Mall, if I never went there ever again, like I'd be fine. It's a weird place.
It's a weird place.
Denver, and then like certain pockets of Denver, it's like there's no one fucking there, and it's like 12, like lunchtime on a a Monday through Friday, and you're like, where the fuck is everyone? This is like the weirdest.
There's like Seattle has had that feeling to me sometimes, even though it's got a little bit more culturally tight. Because it's just,
I can see that.
But it feels that way too when you're in like the downtown area. You're like, well, is everybody? Are they in the? Is this all offices or like? It's got a little of that feel. I mean, technically, like parts of downtown Chicago feel that way to me, but it's like, it's a weird place. Yeah. So I don't know, dude. Like, there's only like 3 or 4 good cities. You know what I mean? And then everything else is little towns that are cool. I think.
No, or like little pockets in each way where you're like, oh, this is the hop and poppin', like cool ass spot, So,
and I think that like the other thing as they get older, like you go to these different places, and it's really just like knowing someone that knows the few places that are really good, And if you've got a few, I I also start to get at this point where it's like, do I even want this many options? Because you can only get into like so many routines, and I don't need to break the routine that often. Yeah. So would it be nice to have like more options than we do in Boulder? Sure, but we have like more than the average small town.
Oh, 100%.
And stuff that's good is really good, and the stuff that's mid is
mid.
And that's fine.
No, and I do the same. It's like Soph and I go to the same exact restaurants. It's like we have we're that's humans, right? We're all creatures of habits, and it's like we have our Thai spot. Maybe once in a while we'll try something different, and then we're like, oh, like this actually was good, but it's like we'll still go back to the same place.
Go to the same couple places, because I know funny. Where it is. I know the people there. I know the stuff. It's kind of like whenever sometimes we go get coffee, and Abby will be like, which one are you going to go to? And I'm like, I'm never going to go to a different one. Yeah. I'm just, my brain doesn't even consider other options. We just go to the one we go to. I know the people there. I know the stuff there. I don't really want to mix it up anyway.
Yeah.
You get a hair up your ass and you go to a different one now and then. But realistically, the normal one's the best.
No, I totally. And I feel like for me, it's always like, I don't know if it's some like weird shit with my parents, with like how I was raised, with like we would go to the places, same thing.
Yeah.
And it would be like we would go to a restaurant and then the food would be kind of mid. And it would be like that place was dead to us.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe it's a fear of like,
like that.
You go, no, literally. Like I'm like, especially when you spend a shit ton of money, you're like, oh, fuck. Like, I won't shit on any place in Boulder, but there's some places where we've gone to where it would be like an expensive meal, and then I'm like, it was good, but it wasn't like that good, and I'm like, I'm never going there again.
Well, this is the thing. You seem like a guy who's done enough dining to weigh in here, because we've gone down this road quite a few times.
Yeah,
I have started to like the level at which I'm willing to pay for different, like, you know what I mean? Like how it should equal out to me. And I think that like, obviously COVID escalated all of this because you started getting food at home and you're like, I don't know if I really even cared about going, it was just what you did.
100%.
And then you go out now and I will pay so much more for like good ambiance and like a mellow like vibe where I feel comfortable. So I'm having a nice time in the space, way more than I will for the food explicitly, I think, to be honest with you. Because if I'm like uncomfortable and it's uptight and the food's really great, that's great. But I'm like, I don't want to go back there. Like I didn't feel like I experienced the whole thing. You know what I mean? Whenever you go to like, I've gone to a couple of nicer, like definitely like very upscale restaurants, and you're so self-conscious and aware that like I realize like, oh, I haven't even looked around at the space yet, or I haven't even like noticed like what the waiters, waitresses are wearing, or I haven't even like noticed all the stuff I should notice yet, because I'm so locked into like there's a system here and I don't know what it is, and I feel like
Interesting. That's
so
crazy.
I'll get like too in my head about it, and I'm like, I don't want to pay that much to feel kind of stiff, So
no, I get that.
I don't know.
No, I get that, because it's like the whole like Michelin star experience where it's like the serving and the atmosphere, like you're saying, right? And to me, it's like I just love the hole in the wall, like get in, get out.
Yeah.
I love that simplicity.
I don't know that I need all the pomp and circumstance all the time. Yeah. It's a lot.
No, I can see it. And I think maybe like on a date night, or you want to be like this like romantic level, I can see that it can culminate into like a good experience. You know what I mean? Or like be like, oh, this was a whole well-rounded thing. But for day-to-day stuff, it's not. I don't know.
Plus, I feel like sometimes the food has gotten so complicated at these places.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, and the originality, creativity, blah, blah, blah. But I also feel like sometimes I can't even remember what the hell I ate by the next day. You know what I mean? You're like, it was like a thing, and I think it had some of this in it, and it kind of looked like, you know what I mean? Or because I don't want to take a picture of it, because that also feels tacky, and like,
be one of those
I don't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. What are you supposed to do? How am I supposed to even remember all this shit? Yeah. It's like listening to an album one time, and then being like, now recite it and tell it to somebody and how excited about it and what you thought was great about it. And you're like, I was doing it one time, dude. I don't know. I want to rinse a song and then tell you, now I really have an opinion.
No, totally.
Like, that's what I'm saying. At the coffee shop I go to a million times, I can tell you the baristas that I'm like, if they're making it, I'm going to order this. If it's the other person, I'm going to order differently.
That's so funny.
Because now I know the place,
Yeah.
So and like you get to know the people or the owners, and you're like, now I want to support it. I like it for X, Y, and Z reason. It's just a different thing. So I don't know. I just feel like maybe it's just my inability to sit still and pay attention long, that kind of thing. And so, but I don't know. I don't experience it as much as, I don't know. I'm not as into it as I used to be.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe it's also having a kid, and like that's more complicated to take them and all that. But
I could see that being that.
She's also been to a lot of fancy restaurants, and she's chill. So that doesn't bother me.
No, I do think it's interesting. I agree with a lot of what you're saying.
I kind of miss like a classic though, like back when like in like, I feel like you're younger, but like late 80s, early 90s, there was like family dinner type of places that were still good. You know what I'm talking about? Like they still delivered on having like serving pretty good food.
Yeah.
Even though it's very straightforward food.
Would it be like family dinner in a way that's like family style?
You know, it's like a family restaurant, not family style, like a family restaurant. Okay. Like, so it's like appealing to a much broader audience.
Yeah, like a lot of
like
options.
They would still do like a standard, like, let's just use like a thing like meatloaf as the example. But like, it would just be like a really good version of that thing.
Yeah.
Nobody does that shit anymore. It has to be like that, but they've inserted all this dumb shit into it that I don't really need. It's like, it didn't need to be fancy, you know? So we probably don't need to go down the restaurant road for too long because we could be here for a while.
I could talk for a minute about it.
But yeah, it's like I do feel like there's like a lot of that, like, you know, I don't know. I'm a little bored with all that stuff, you know?
Well, maybe it's just like it's been washed out.
Yeah.
But it's like I also don't want one of those like weird broken down like I see the crazy videos of they're like, oh, you're gonna get your dessert in your hand and it's like gonna pour chocolate and I'm like, no, I don't want that shit.
I've
like,
been to like
weird.
Alinea and stuff in Chicago, and look, that's being done at a high level, and you see it and you're like, holy shit! But you're like, I don't even know what I liked about it other than it was kind of nuts. It was just like a new experience.
Yeah, like avant-garde kind of dining
like,
experience.
When I've tried to explain to people, I'm like, I can't remember what I ate. I remember like what it looked like and how they did it, but I don't remember like what the food was exactly. And that's what I guess I kind of mean. It's like I'm paying a lot of money to like just not remember huge pieces of that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Really I feel like my new dream scenario is like I want to go to like a lunch spot and get like one small thing, and go to a bakery and get one small thing, and go to a coffee shop and get the coffee, and then I want to stop here because they have really good XYZs. That's the day I want to craft for myself. If I'm going to spend the same amount of money, I'd rather piece it out from a bunch of different random places and be like, damn, that's so good, that one thing, and that's less complicated, and it's not all at one time
compared to doing like a big, you know, $500 crazy dinner event. Yeah, that it's
and
like.
We used to do like, I mean, I guess it just used to be different that like we'd go to restaurants in Chicago when we were younger, and we would like get there and do drinks for a little while and talk and like step out and have a cigarette and come back and then order like appetizers and like chit chat. And it was like okay. I feel like restaurants are just trying to get you in and out anymore. It's like a lot faster. And I understand it's just the way like the economy is and all this other shit that like affects that.
Yeah, no, of course.
And that like you should be able to run a decent restaurant, you know, at a profit, and it doesn't even seem like that's possible anymore.
Yeah, with everything being
But that
crazy.
being said, like, it's still like it ruins the like that sort of like I'm sitting in here, I know the space really well, I know the people, you know. I don't know. I'm just not. I don't know.
No, I can see. I feel like that's like a European approach.
I would love that.
Where it's like you're out there for 4 hours.
Yeah.
And you smoked like, you know, 4 cigarettes.
Yeah, you're chilling.
You're people watching for half of it.
Yeah.
You know, if at the very end you have, and I like that. It's like
that's the best part of European food, I would say. It's like if
totally.
any time in Europe that you've spent, it's like that's the nice part about it. It's definitely a lot slower. It's like service is not fast.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of looking around a lot. But then I feel like I have time to take it in rather than it's like, hey, I'm your waiter and let me tell you about all these specials and here's all this shit and here's this. And then they're right back out with the food. And sometimes you're getting the appetizer within like the first 10 minutes of being there. And you're like, damn, dude, like I don't need this yet. I don't even know where the bathroom's at.
No, exactly.
You know, so it's too much.
No, I totally. Well, okay, well, on the tangent of restaurants, to finish what I did. So yesterday,
you went to a family restaurant.
Yeah, we went to. So as you can see, maybe if people that are watching, I got a Casa Bonita hat.
Swagged out.
Went to Casa Bonita last night. First time going since the renewal, right, with Trey Stone and
sure. I don't like maybe
Trey Parker
for anybody that
Stone,
doesn't know what it is. I feel like it's like a thing that we knew of when I was a kid, just because of South Park.
Yeah. Oh my god.
It was like a jokey, like crazy place.
Yeah, infamous episode.
That's all I really know about it. And then when we first moved here, we wanted to go. They're like, oh no, it's like closed because they're like redoing it. And then it was like, then we've been trying to get in since, and it's been like
and it's tough.
8 years now, and it's not happened. You know.
Yeah.
So.
No, they had so it's been there for like 40 plus years. Like I think it's and I learned that it's actually they had like a cool little museum part in it that was like it kind of explained the whole thing, and it was a chain. They had like they had places in Mexico, they had places in Texas, but the biggest one is in Denver, in Lakewood, off of Colfax. And so yeah, same thing. I got this reservation back in like November.
Yeah.
For just the two of us, just my wife and I. And I went maybe 3 times before, like in the 2000s. Like we go for birthdays. My sister loved it. And the food was always
because you're like from here. That's maybe important.
Yeah, I'm from Littleton, which is like South Denver.
Sure.
And it was fun. I mean, it would be like the food was horrible. The sopapillas were good. That was the one thing that was outstanding.
Yeah.
And then it would be like, you would go and play like skee ball and go through it, like exactly the episode, Blackbird's Cave.
Yep.
You would see the cliff divers. You would go in and it smelled like a pool.
Yeah.
And it still has that experience with all the, the cliff diving pools. But the food was great. It's definitely, it's expensive that you get in because it's like the price includes food, the sopapillas, all that stuff. And then it's like to be access to the area, right? That you can go and you eat. You walk around, you go get your face painted, which Soph and I did, which is hilarious that I I did that. Yeah. And then it's like, you just kind of dick around and it's fun. Yeah. It's definitely experience.
Is the food like where's the food hitting at? Is it good?
For Mexican food, I would say it's like a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
It's like think
for
of
what the place looks like. If anyone doesn't know what it looks like, stop down and look this up because I think it's worth getting like a mental picture.
Yeah, like to get the inside and be like, okay, it's like a for people that have maybe no idea. It's like think of like a rainforest cafe, where it's like it's a theme restaurant and it's all about like Mexican culture and American and Mexican culture to be real here. But but it's fun. They have a mariachi band playing the whole time. They have like a guitarist up in the little like play area section. This
is what I'm talking about. If I'm gonna pay dumb money, which you're gonna do at any other restaurant anyway,
it's easy,
and half of them are like people like it's just no offense, but like so many of these restaurants are like very mid for what they're selling you. You know what I mean?
100%.
On this whole like this is a farm. It's like okay, we've heard about that. We can't use that anymore. Like all this like dumb shit where you're like, I don't need. This is a lot of you talking about stuff that like we're all familiar with. You're not groundbreaking. It does not. I don't need. It does not need to hit for this much money.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Considering the mid-level story you're telling me.
Yeah.
So at least when you go to this place, you get entertained. It's kitschy and weird. You're not going to experience the same thing at many other places, so it's 100%. Unusual.
Yeah.
And at least it's some big experience. So if I'm going to spend them dumb money anyway, at least...
Give me like...
at least it's stupid and big. You know what I mean? No. I guess that's what I mean.
No, I would totally go back.
Yeah,
I think it'd be so much. Like I could see the three of you with Gia would love it, and like you can kind of tell the little bit of South Park influence. Like obviously with like the whole Paramount fucking all that shit. It's like they are not licensed. They have like a Cartman there, right?
Yeah,
but it's not like they're selling like special Casa Bonita, South Park swag because of that whatever the copyright or trademark bullshit they're going through. But
it does suck that you can't get like a bootleg like chef shirt with Casa Bonita.
That would be sick, holding up some like smothered burritos
maybe we make,
or whatever.
Maybe we make these on our own.
That's where you buy it outside by someone. But it was good though, and I mean in the food I had the bar low, so it's like I kind of and it was good. I got like enchiladas, they were great. Had some mezcal margs, they were strong as hell. That kind of
like stuff you can't really like mess up.
Exactly.
It's just like tortillas and cheese.
Exactly, and it's just like you have the seasoning, and I think before it's like it was just flavorless. So I think they just made it as cheap as possible, and now and it's like any other good Mexican place that's probably in your downtown, right? Like refried beans. It's not any like true like Mexican culture where it's like you're getting some crazy which is
but just let America be dumb sometimes.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like I don't need to be challenged at every level. In fact, a lot of times, like look, and this is coming from a guy who goes and sees predominantly movies that are extremely challenging, and I will not go see like fun things. You know what I mean? I just have no interest in it. But like I think that where I don't have an interest in it there, I do have. It's the same thing with like I like both difficult music and I like stupid fun music. You know what I mean? There's a reason for both.
Yeah.
I don't know why like. I think it's because everyone eats. Like some people are just like, oh, I'm not that into music, or I'm not that into movies, and that's fine. No one ever questions that further. But you can't really be like, I have no interest in food because you're like, well, you have to have some interest and some opinion because you have to do it.
Yeah, it's life. Yeah,
and everyone has that kind of with restaurants. So if I'm like, no, I love like. I was gonna say Chi-Chi's. I don't think that exists anymore. But like, I love Applebee's or whatever it is. People are like. I guess it's kind of kitschy and fun now. People like that.
Yeah,
maybe it's coming back.
Yeah, I feel like it's coming. Even like IHOP or like Village Inn. Like I fucking love Village Inn.
Yeah, it's great.
It's great for what it is, and it's like it's
because there's also sometimes where it's nice to be like, look, I plop down here. I spend $30, $40 for my family, and I fed everybody. Everyone's chilling. Everyone has good pancakes.
Yeah,
how much different do I want a pancake to be?
Yeah, like it's a pancake.
You know what I mean? I do not want an elevated. There's certain things I do not want the elevated version of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, and I love Village Inn's pies. They got some good pies there.
Yeah. You don't even think about a place that like you go and you sit at a bar and have a pie and coffee and take off.
Exactly, yeah.
But like if I can do that for a 5 spot, done deal. That's a great situation.
Yeah, but definitely recommend Casa Bonita.
Yeah.
Hit back on. Like, if anyone's in the area, you got to. We should go. We should do like a canoe club outing.
How did you get? What do you have to do? Is it still like a round robin for the reservation or whatever?
Well, I was reading an article. I don't know if it was like in Westward, but it's like it was basically saying that like Casa Bonita is the most exclusive restaurant right now.
Yeah,
like it's the hardest to get into, or one of them at least.
We've off and on tried to get in for well over 2 years at least. Whenever the reopen happened and they like did the initial run of like VIP things, we've been trying to get in for at least 2 years and never got in.
And basically it was like I had to sign up for the email marketing chain and the text chain. And then I think that was like
maybe. That's it.
And then it was like, okay, here you got in. But I was just talking to Alan. He's like, I have 2 like RSVP, whatever you want to call them. And I was like, yeah, let's do it then.
Yeah,
and it's sick because they have like deluxe seating where it's like you can go in the cave or you can go in like the mine.
Yeah,
you have ones you could be in like a sick like pergola, like looking over the diving. Yeah. So it's like it's really cool to like have the different. And it would be fun. I know we would be rowdy as hell there. It would be fun.
That's what I like. It's like a place that's meant to be kind of rowdy and bad. And like and like a field trip type of bad.
No, I totally.
When you just get a little tooled up. So what's going on besides that? Okay, so that's you did the weekend stuff. I'm trying to think if I did anything on the weekend. I don't think it was anything interesting to.
Yeah, did you do anything cool?
No, I mean we're still kind of like recovering from being under the weather, you know. So it's just been like we just kind of decidedly didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Other than like a couple quick errands and then pretty much nothing. Yeah. So
I love that though.
Then it snowed a shit ton too.
Oh yeah, it dumped on Sunday.
So I was gonna go see movies and stuff, but it was impossible to get around. Yeah. And so no. We went and grabbed a coffee. I think that's literally it. Well, so we cleaned the house. What kicked the thing? Cleaned the house. Did my painting. Nothing thrilling. Yeah. My daughter. We prepped a little bit. My daughter's in a talent show today.
Dang.
So.
Oh, is she being a cat still? Is that what her plan is?
The plan is she's a cat, and she's going to do a dance routine to it.
I love it.
The dance routine she refuses to prep for. This will be on the spot. She's just going to figure it out in the moment. We tried to like coach her a little bit on like, well, maybe you have like a beginning pose and end pose or something. Mm-hmm. Not interested. She wants to do this off the top, and that's how it's going to be.
Yeah.
So she's got the costume.
Dude, she's going to kill it.
She's ready to go.
Yeah.
She's very confident, but she also gets nervous.
Oh, yeah.
Like she gets a little nervous, like shy sometimes. So we'll see.
Well, is this her first time like kind of being on a stage? Like
No. She's done like ballet and stuff. So she's done plenty of those types of things. So she's done this before-ish. So I think she'll be all right. It's also, I think the stakes are pretty low. It's like a kindergarten talent show.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I can't imagine. Although the girl going after her is doing like magic tricks. And I'm like, if she nails them, that's a tough... Well, she doesn't have to follow her though. She's opening. I'm like, So she's either this girl drops the ball in the magic tricks and she crushes and just, you know what I mean? She's the hard act to follow. Or
you don't want to be.
You let the magic girl close her out, you know? So I'm not sure.
That's awesome.
We'll see.
No, that's going to be fun though. Yeah, what song is she dancing to?
It is, do you know the Billie Eilish song from the Barbie movie?
I think I do.
I don't know what it's called.
I'm trying to remember.
It's like a slow song. Yeah. She played it at like I think the Oscars last year.
Okay, yeah.
It's that, but it's done by a cat that's meowing the whole thing.
Oh, is it like the meow 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 meow?
That one, yeah. You got it. Yeah. That's it. Yep,
it's gonna be awesome.
So it's also she chose a slow song, which is interesting, but it also has to like fit. It can only be so long and all these things. So this worked. We'll see. She might just stand there and write it out. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, again, like stakes are low. It doesn't really.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
I feel a little nervous for her, though, if I'm being honest with you. You know what I mean? Because it's like I don't know. I don't know if she's, she won't communicate if she's like legit nervous or not. Yeah. She just says no. And you're like, all right.
No, dude.
But.
And she is like she's confident too.
She's
like, as a 5-year-old.
She's very sure of herself.
Yeah.
She's very sure of herself. We'll just put it that way.
No,
I think that's the best way to, Yeah, she's it's like it's an interior confidence because she'll admit right away like if she's shy in a situation she'll tell you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see what she does.
I don't know. It's always like that right before you go on stage. You're like,
I think especially because she's doing it alone for the first time. Like she's done those performances, but those are with like a group. Mm-hmm. Either this births a star or this kind of solidifies. I'm not a stage person. Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, hey, good luck
Have
to
you ever
her.
done a talent show before?
I have, yeah.
What did you do?
I was like a kid, and I like, what the fuck did I think I played the piano. And I did a lot of like recitals and playing like live in bands and stuff when I was young. So it's like, and I remember just being where I'll be like, oh, same thing. I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna go. And then it's like once you're in the back room where you're like about to go on, you're like, oh fuck, like even if it's like 20 people.
I have so I've played obviously a lot of live music in my day with bands. I will say I did a talent show, and I don't know how old I would have been. Pretty young.
Yeah.
Pretty well. Not super young,
like
maybe
like
not Gia's age, but
12
older
or something like around there, or like
I feel like it was younger than that. But I'm not good at this at ages. You know what I mean? Like specific ages. Let's just say I feel like it was younger than 12, but it was older than 6, so somewhere in that category.
Yeah, okay.
And me and my friends, we were it was a religious school, and we had to. So like you're kind of tied in. So we wanted to do a music thing, but you know, you can't be too edgy, even though we were into like, we were into like Blink-182. It wasn't anything super cool, but, and I think we landed on selling because at the time Creed was known as like a religious band. So we're like, we can get away with that. That's like the hardest stuff we can like legitimately get away with. And we just did like lip synced it because we didn't know how to play instruments. Yeah. We were like kids. So we didn't know how to, I mean, I guess we could have, it would have been bad if we'd done it with instruments. So it was almost better that we didn't. I will say, all three of us hard committed to the role. So I feel like that's good.
Yeah.
That's probably video out there that I don't want released, but it's out there somewhere. But we did hard commit. Like we jumped off the stage and got really into it. You know?
Hell yeah,
I have an ability to black out in any stage situation where it doesn't bother me because it's like a separate world. Do you know what I mean?
You almost like lock into like a.
It never bothered me when I played as I got older and played in bands and stuff.
And you would still remember like like you would just be
I
like,
have a really bad time remembering lyrics, or like when I was younger, and these were lyrics I wrote and I just couldn't remember them.
Yeah.
So that was always a little bit of an issue, but I could always kind of fudge. We were loud enough bands that you could sort of fudge past all that.
Just get it.
Never bothered me though. Never got like anxious at all.
Damn, dude.
We played like decent sized shows a handful of times, and let me think a couple of the big ones. I don't think you're gonna know the bands, but maybe I'm sure a handful of listeners will know these bands.
Yeah.
We opened in front of a metal band called Job for a Cowboy.
That
was like a big deal in like the early 2000s.
Okay.
The Locust, who I think people might remember as being like a hardcore band that like dressed as locusts.
Okay.
It was kind of obnoxious.
Sick.
There was like synthesizers in it.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of some of the other big ones. Norma Jean, that was a big like religious band actually. Formerly the Chariot. Never with the Chariot, only as Norma Jean. But Norma Jean before they switched singers, so it's still kind of good.
Okay.
Let's see. Gwen Stacy was another band that we opened in front of that was pretty big. I mean, these were all like, these very like early 2000s like
bands.
Metalcore kind of bands or like hardcore adjacent bands. And then there was a bunch of like hardcore bands that I don't know. I would have to go through the laundry list. But you'd open on these sets that were like also like there's like 8 to 10 people on the bill. You know what I mean? So it'd be somewhere in between there. And if you were anything above, let's say if there was 8, if you were above like 6, you were doing pretty good. You were doing good. So we got in there a couple times. Never nervous though, no matter how big the crowds and stuff like that. You were more nervous like somebody might hit you or something because of the type of music it was. But not. I was always fine during those. I didn't ever get like stage fright or anything like that.
That's like.
But I think that like if I had to give like a speech or something, maybe that's different.
That would be a different because I know you hate doing. That's like.
I don't like when it's organized.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if it needs to be like a specific message, that's going to be tough for me.
Yeah, like give us a speech about Canoe Club this year. Like
if you were to say like big, let's say there's some big crowd and you were like, hey, you can have a year to prep for this, or I can hand you the mic last minute, not tell you what it is, and then you jump up there. I'd so much more prefer somebody just hands me the mic last minute.
That's how I am too.
Because I can just talk, but I can fill space. That's why you do the podcast. It's no big deal.
I feel like that's what's always was difficult too, though. Is it's like when you're over prepared. Yeah. Then it's like you're just like, okay, am I gonna fuck up a line? Am I gonna like to me it's easier to just go straight from and just trust yourself and be like
worried about timing. You're worried about did I include it all? Did I miss anything? Did I forget certain things? Do I remember a beat? Did the beat land? You know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff. If you start doing that stuff, it's really hard. At least for me.
No, I totally. That's why I hated sheet music forever.
Oh yeah.
Because I did like normal band and like jazz band and shit growing up, and it's like. I hated it because it was too confining, and it would be like,
I don't even know how to do any of that.
No, and I had to learn piano, and that's like how traditionally, right? And like, I can still read it, but it's just, I hated that like construct of like, no, you have to be like, this is the time, and you need to hold this for 3 fucking beats, and then I'm just like, you just feel it, you listen to it, and that's why I always love jamming compared to like just dicking around with my friends compared to like being like, okay, we're gonna.
Well, I think there's a big difference. Like, look, I've been around plenty of like learned musicians who do stuff where they like map out, here's the break and here's the beat and here's the blah, blah, blah. And you do all these things and you're like, man, when they're locked, they're so locked. Good.
Yeah, it's
But if
crazy.
Anybody falls off, they don't know how to deal with it. It's kind of like, I am not a learned musician at all. I don't know. I can read like tabs and things. Or if someone plays that I'm playing in this key, I can go, I got it. You know what I mean? But like, I can't, I don't know what timing. I played drums for eons and toured with bands. I have no idea how to play in anything. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if they say play in a certain time. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Just play for a second and I'll know what it is.
And you'll like get into it. Yeah.
Which is it's not the greatest thing because it's made like composing music in my like life of like producing anything. That's really difficult because I am so behind on knowing that kind of shit. You know what I mean? Like learning that kind of stuff is really hard for me. But at the same time, like I've played with guys who are like really learned musicians and they'll do things, but they're so locked in to like what they have to do based on music theory or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's no good. Like when you're trying to play with a band, because suddenly if they can't lock in, they're going to get frustrated. They'll never figure it out. Whereas I can just be like, if you just play for a minute, I can jump in and figure it out. Fine.
Yeah.
So there is something to say for like feeling that stuff as opposed to just
to like being.
Yeah. It's probably the dream version is a hybrid of everything that you know a little bit of enough to have the dialogue, but you also can jump in with whoever. But it's tough. I mean, I would, I don't like that shit either. I hated when I would like, you get passed around in bands a lot in the music I played when I was younger and somebody jump in and sometimes you'd be with a band and it would be like, all right, we're going to do, on this measure, and I'm like, I have no idea what they're talking about at all. I don't even know. I have no clue. Yeah. And then they would get frustrated if I was off or whatever. I'm like, I know I'm off, but listen to what it's doing. You know what I mean? And then they, it's just a communication tool at the end of the day, I think. So
when it's like that type A and that type B kind of, because I know musicians that are incredible that are like that are like session and you know that are like that's their mind.
Yeah, and if you're a studio musician, you kind of have to be. Exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm not great in a studio by any means.
Or if you're like playing for like. You're in the pit for like some fucking Broadway, play or some shit.
It is what it is,
But no, and it's always interesting, like people that are listening to like in their in ears or listening to click tracks, their cues even of like what. And to me, I've never been that. I've never been in that capacity where I would need to be in like a click track. But
I can sometimes if someone wants to go, I say play the click for me for a minute. I can like go. Got it. You know what I mean?
And then
but like, I don't know how people play to it because I don't.
Oh, it would drive me crazy.
Yeah. Plus, it's like I learned drumming from watching videos of guys play drums in other bands, and or like just watching people play live.
Yeah.
And it would be like if you watch them, they look around the whole time. So that's how I learned is just look at other people because you can kind of see what they're going to do, and then you can kind of accent that.
Yeah.
So that's how I like taught myself to play. So a lot of that is like, this is such a random thing to throw out there. This is a band that was on like whatever Bright Eyes, whatever their record label was, and I think it was called 2 Gallants. It's this band, it was a 2-piece band. They were kind of like country, I think, almost like if you think like Kings of Leon era type of shit, but it was a little edgier than that.
And
they were a 2-piece, and the drummer played this really big, low drum set with big cymbals, and I always thought that was very cool. And I'd seen them on like a late night show, like a Letterman or something like that. And the way he played drums is how I wanted to play drums because it seemed like he was like playing along with stuff with not the beat, if that made sense. It's like he would play to things that were happening with the guitar. So if he strummed hard, he hit the cymbal. You could tell he was like watching what he was doing as opposed to like worrying about the beat. And I always thought that was so cool. And so I just watched videos of like, there's really just one video. There's only because YouTube wasn't what it was now. I would just watch that video over and over and over again and try to do what he did. So I don't know how to explain to people like that's the drumming I know how to do. I have no idea how to do general stuff, but I can do that really well. So people either in bands I played with, people either love it or they hate it, but it's one or the other because I'm not necessarily. I can lock in with a bass player fine, but after that I'm only looking for spots where I can accent like almost like. It felt like what he was doing was almost playing to the vocals, if that made sense, which was interesting. So it's like he was trying to complement everything that was happening up on top rather than complementing the rhythm, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. Yeah.
It's not the right way or anything like that. It's just that's how I learned.
But see, I think that's like the best way though.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, my opinion, in some ways.
And maybe and I agree with that with you, because it's just like I always feel like that, like fluidity or like that relationship with your band and looking at people and being like, that's how it gels. Like that's how you get that like groove where you can feel maybe it's like too perfect.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why I love like older music in a lot of ways, where it's like,
a lot of live tracks. You get a lot of,
and they did everything in one fucking room. And it was like crazy, where now it's, that's not how they're like.
I was watching the video of them talking about it's just some clip on Instagram or some shit with the guy that was, I don't remember what song it was Beat It or what it was. And he's like, he was talking about how he's like, we didn't program a loop. We had to play the same thing over and over again. And he was explaining that like, after you've done it 4 or 5 times, you're in like a rhythm that he's like, I can't do off the first one, and you can't do it on a loop.
Yeah.
You can only do it in this one way.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Like I've never thought about that, like how you'd say it out loud, but of course, because sometimes I'll just be like, just play for a minute and I'm gonna hear it and I'm gonna go, now I know what it is. And you can kind of like, even if you played enough music, you can anticipate like what's gonna happen in the song a little bit, even if I've never heard it before and I'm playing it for the first time. Whereas like I don't know how you teach that. You think you can. You know what I mean? It's the same thing like as I've learned, I've wanted to get into painting, and I did a little bit when I was a kid, but it was nothing crazy. It was just stuff you'd learn in like regular art classes and stuff like that. Or like what I could see from PBS shows that talked about drawing or painting or whatever. And when I started doing it, I'm only ever doing it just for like an exercise in like relaxing because I have troubles like sitting and relaxing. So this is a way to sort of relax while doing something. And I watched a couple of videos, but I realized really quick, I just need to like do it. I need to start just doing random things and guessing, because then I'll feel it first. If I feel like what it should feel like when you're just in like a flow state of doing something, that's what I'm looking for. And if you, I think, get too locked into all of the parameters of this is how you do certain things or these are the techniques, then that's all you do. And it's just you're constantly practicing rather than just allowing it to be art in whatever, you know what I mean? Whether that's painting, music, whatever your thing is. Yeah. But it should, I feel like it should start there. Because if you watch like kids do any of those things, that's how they do it. They just want to feel it.
Totally,
like, when Gia plays my synths or drum machines or guitar or whatever I have, she wants to feel it in the way she's seen people feel it first. So she'll just start doing that without, you know what I mean, without thinking about it. Yeah. It's like, that's the right way to do something. Like, you want to feel it first, as opposed to like technical side of things. You can always add that in, you know what I mean? But you can't like feel it. I think it's hard to go the opposite way around, or at least from my brain it is. Yeah. So I don't know what we're talking about right now. I guess this is but yeah.
Well, no, I think that's what like the childlike wonder, like that classic, like, you grow, you're so new, everything's like the colors or, whatever it is, right? And it's like, as you get older, you kind of get the restriction, and that's kind of what gets out. You kind of just become like lame. Yeah, you become so used to, and I think looking
you want
at
everything
to
be good because you're an adult,
exactly,
and you're like, it's not good just because you're old.
You don't want to fail in front of people. You don't want to fuck up and be like, fuck, like you look like an idiot, right? Yeah, and that's what I love about kids, because they're just kind of like, they're like, I don't give two shits.
There is no end product for them. Yeah, you know what I mean. Whereas everything you're taught after that is that there's some end product to what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where it's like sometimes it's just killing time, dude. You know?
Oh my god, yeah.
Which I think is like the bummer of like, as much I've praised social media for a lot of the things that I think it does do, and connecting people and stuff like that. But it's also, it takes away. I think boredom is like the most crucial thing. Like, like kids or anybody can really live with is just being bored. Because you do like interesting things. Then you start just doing stuff to do stuff because
you got.
Yeah, brain's wandering.
Yeah.
And I think it's really hard as you get older. I think it's like you just become a lot less curious too. Like just naturally, I feel less curious than so it's like you have to like force yourself sometimes
to be curious. Yeah,
yeah, because it's, I don't know, things get boring, easily.
Oh yeah. No, and it's also like when you just get older, you just have so much. You don't have time to do shit.
Yeah,
like I don't, and I even feel like with even like making beats or whatever, it's like. Sure. I have to make time to do it, and then I'll like sit there and just be like, "What the fuck am I doing?" It's like,
it's a tough thing. I mean, I think the hardest thing I deal with on any of those kind of fronts is sometimes just being like in a rut with it, where it's like it's not. I don't know what's not exciting me about it, but like I'm just not like stoked to do it. Even when I sit there and kind of force myself to do it, even when I don't feel like it, you're like, I don't know, nothing's.
sparking.
I don't know. Nothing's like revving me up to like, you know what I mean? What I love is you get into a place where it's like, I want to come home. I want to get as much as I like being at work. I want to get home. I want to get done. I want to be able to do all the things I got to do at home, and then so I can get to that thing.
Yeah,
that's what I like.
That's what I like too.
I just want to look forward to things. That's it. Yeah, you know what I mean, whether it be like stupid dinners, going to see movies, working on little projects, whatever it is. That's the thing that'll like. That's like the way I notice. Like, oh, I'm feeling a little like down or depressed or whatever. Is like when I'm not looking forward to stuff. I think that sucks. Yeah, you know. And I know that you're supposed to make time for yourself to relax and all that shit, but I like don't look forward to doing that. You know what I mean? Like occasionally, but I don't know. It doesn't excite me, so I like to have things in place, like whatever it is, like little projects
to get it in.
Yeah, so you get excited about it. Plus you then you get into these worlds of music or art or it doesn't matter what your thing is, but like I want to obsess over it. I want to like look at that on my phone when I'm taking a break and see like, oh, what tools do I need to do X, Y, or Z, or what do I need to learn so I can do this, or those types of things. Yeah.
No, it's weird. Yeah, I don't know. Life is just fucking weird, dude.
Yeah. No question there. All right, let's get into how are we doing on time? Let's get into.
We're doing good. We got that.
Let's get into. So we have like some of these. We've had like some broader user questions throughout the years, and some things like Chase and I have left because we've sort of like inadvertently touched on them or something like that. So I feel like people kind of know our takes. But as we've got a new person in the chair, I figured I'll unearth some of these and see if there's something to chat about. One that popped out at me because I know that if I'm not mistaken, I know that you've been, and that is how has traveling to Japan changed the way you think about fashion and style? Because you've been, right?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, it was fucking the best time of my life, dude. Best month of my life.
How long ago was it? Was this recent or?
Yeah, it was September of last year.
Oh, okay, great. So it's fresh.
That was our honeymoon.
Yeah. Oh, sick.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Literally cannot stop talking about it. Yeah. Like it's bad. Yeah. Like don't ask me about Japan.
So like on the front of obviously there's a lot of avenues you can go down, but like on the front of like what that question is, how did it sort of like reframe that to you? I mean, like. Or maybe it's helpful if you tell me any of sort of like your journey with like fashion and style and like how that like shaped it a little bit more. Because I think I do think it's a place that's impossible to go to no matter what your level of interest in is in clothes is. And it is a place where you go and you're like, oh, that's a whole different way of thinking about it. That like the people there definitely think about clothing different than the way we think about it here.
Oh, 100. Yeah, I completely agree.
And that's at every level. Yeah. Like I think that's what was interesting to me is how it is much more deeply in their culture than it is our culture. I think it's like fading from our culture to a certain degree. And it feels like it exists in these niches and pockets and places and then just doesn't touch the rest of it. And it's gotten so, I hate the whole like, oh, everybody's lazy and that's why they dress casual. And it's like you could dress very casually and still like and still care about everything. And you also, I think the other connotation that happens is you have to have money. And I'm like, vastly untrue in my opinion. In fact, a lot of the people that I think that I've met that have insane style, I don't think are spending a ton of money on fashion.
I totally
Maybe
agree.
There's a piece or two I believe in investments into like nicer things because nicer materials just lay better and drape better and look better and last longer.
Exactly. Yeah.
But outside of that, like I do not think that you need to be spending thousands of dollars a week on clothing to have great style. And it's kind of evident there where it's like at every age, every level, it feels considered and there seems to be a more like group dynamic about it that I don't think exists here. Whereas like, we've talked about it on the pod a little bit, but like individualism is so praised here and that's great. I am obviously so for that, but you do lack this like cohesion across the board. You know what I mean? Like, whereas like Japan, there is this weird, like interesting cohesion of consideration around clothes. Yeah, that I sort of wish I would see more of in
America.
Where it's just you don't see. It doesn't seem like we have like a universal opinion of like we all take this seriously. You know what I mean? To a certain extent.
Yeah, like we care about what we look like, and I feel like maybe in some cities, right, like Chicago, New York, you'll walk around and you see
Chicago's
people
dicey, but New York certainly,
but like, and I went to school in Boston, and that was like I feel like growing up, I always loved fashion, and I dressed myself in the weirdest. I was wearing like fucking pink polos and pastel. It was the style, right? It was like Sperry's and I cared a lot about what I wore and I think just going on and kind of going out to Boston and growing, it was like being in a city. Denver obviously is a city, but not like Boston or New York or that Northeast style. That's when I started first seeing people being like, okay, I actually care about what I'm going to wear.
Yeah.
And they're the hype beast type, the sneakerheads. There's the very wealthy, students that were from, China or wherever. And they would be, draped in like Balenciaga and Canada Goose, all that shit like that. But to me, I feel like Japan was a huge eye opener. Obviously loving Canoe Club before going there. I like knew kind of the brands. I lurking around and being like, okay, like what do I want to do? And I agree with everything you said. I think it's just there's a cohesion there that it's like they all are effortlessly just, it's like they put on it and it's not like they're like out being like, oh, like I'm going to try to wear my best and like, make it look like I tried really hard. It's like effortless style. And it's drippy, I guess is the way, or what people say, they have the sauce. Like they have the sauce there without trying. And I feel like,
well, because I think if it becomes so much a part of your culture or just, it's almost like it doesn't, when you see people with great style there, it doesn't feel like it's I think this is in general actually, but it doesn't feel like it's at the forefront of their brain. It's like separate. Like I wear these clothes because I care about this designer, I care about blah, blah, blah. And that fits into my overall aesthetic of X. Yeah. And I do that because I work here. And it feels like it's part of something bigger as opposed to being like, I'm a fashion guy. You know what I mean? That's why I have all this stuff
I totally agree.
And like, it feels less put on to me there. I don't know what it is. It feels like, again, I think it's just great style comes at a point when you sort of stop thinking about it so much. And it's sort of the clothes become part of you as opposed to your inside of clothes.
Yeah.
And I think that that has happened so long ago and is so much part of the culture that it all feels so stylish because even the most baseline stuff looks elevated because it's been cared about for that long, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's right or not, but that's certainly the way it feels.
How it feels. Yeah, definitely.
Someone as being from like, I'm from middle of America and it's different. I mean, it's casual. It's sort of, I don't know whatever happened where it started being like, maybe it's just like over blending in and then it kind of just becomes nothing. And then there's sort of like nothing to look at. It's almost like you go to a normal place in any random state you'd want to choose. And you're like, this just doesn't, nobody has clothes on here that even make me feel like I know what they are. It's so homogenous that I don't know. I can't even pick out like that's this style or that's this type of worker even or that's this type. You can't. There's no level of being able to kind of delineate styles at all.
To get
no, I think it's maybe like why there it just feels like everyone seems to have some sort mindfulness around clothing and
totally
in style and things like that.
Well, and it's like funny. It's like obviously you and Chase being from the Midwest, and it's like growing up in Colorado. I guess we have maybe a little more of a like it would be Patagonia jackets and like more athleisure,
sure.
But hiking, like kind of like I can go on a hike right now, right? And I think that's kind of maybe like if we have a Colorado style, that's maybe at the core, but it's not like everyone's like that. You know, like a lot of people, we just kind of wear what's comfortable, I guess, and also like what you looks the part. Like I think growing up, and it's like, what do the cool kids wear? And it's like, you wanted to wear kind of similarly what's safe for each other, right? Sure. Like what do frat boys wear? What do like, these girls, like the classic black top and jeans, like.
You might be right. Maybe that's where it starts. Maybe it's like you stop wanting to stand out there. Yeah. And if you don't stand out, well, not everyone, but many, the majority at that point, you don't really want to stand out because you don't want to get, you don't want to talked about.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? That's the last thing you can deal with at that age.
Yeah. But, and it's comfortable. I think it's like, I don't want to look crazy. And I think now maybe in like especially Instagram fashion, it's like I think because of the algorithm, everything needs to be so crazy and so ridiculous that it's like this is this insane shape and like these crazy boots and like all that. And I think it's like because that gets views because it's crazy. But I think what I love about Japan is it's just like the silhouettes and it's so basic, but it's so like I think it's just they wear clothes that fit them so well. And to me, like, I know maybe I talked on a podcast like a while ago for one of the rowdy ones, but like wearing and finding the right pants, like it wasn't until I went to Japan, saw these men that had kind of similar body shapes to me. And I'm like, they all wear high-rise jeans and they all have, and it just looks good on them where I used to wear, like mid to low, like just tough. Classic, like, tough, and it was, seeing that, I was like, damn, like they have such great proportions and they're, or even going to like Uniqlo and just like seeing like a cheap alternative and like seeing like, everything's a little more cropped and it's a little, and that was like a big eye opener for me to be like, okay, it's not really about the brands. It's not about like how crazy you look. It's just how it fits you, I think, is the number one. And that was a lesson to me is.
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes I think about the streetwear movement a lot in different ways. And, I think there is this massive importance to it needing to exist to make fashion way more inclusive than it was, because for so long it was so exclusionary.
Yeah.
Like that's how it was defined, more or less.
Oh my, yeah.
And that stopped all that, in my opinion. I mean, I really do believe, like we've talked, we don't need to go down this road, but like that's the importance of Virgil as a long-term designer. It has nothing to do with what he did, what he designed. I mean, sure, there's things to argue there and talk about and bicker about, and that's great. But I think the overarching thing to me is that he disrupted fashion from being something that could only be touched by a select few, and now it's going to be touched by everybody at every level, and no one is not allowed in now. And I think he did that through brute force. You know what I mean? And I think that's sick, because it needed that. It was so done and dated and boring and just masturbatory, in my opinion. Like, it was just so many of the same designers putting out the same bullshit, and we always had to act like it was interesting, and it wasn't interesting. Yeah. And they needed a little, something nipping at their heels to change everything. You know what I mean? And I think that that's even like, we're still dealing with the ripple effects of some of that movement that happened, in that, like, all this like these moving around of designers, people putting in celebrity designers into places because that's what they thought that was, but that wasn't it. And like, it's gone through this huge, ugly disruption that's allowed things to come up that are different and fresh. And I think that's great. I think that's what fashion always needs. I think that's what all art needs at a certain point.
Oh my God,
like these weird disruptions that, people won't like it. That's fine. I don't even know if it's about liking it. It's about addressing something bigger than individual taste. And I think that was super cool about all those things. But I think about streetwear as starting to be this thing where that was really streetwear and social media entering the fashion scape almost at the same time, made individualism this huge, deep, important thing. And like you're saying, it gets to the point where if you're combining those two things, you're going to end up with those those insane red boots that the mischief boots are, where it's just for clicks and likes, and it's avant-garde and loud and abstract and strange.
Yeah.
And there's going to be people that appreciate that. It's the same way you look at the art world. And it's there's plenty of people who appreciate that aesthetic, and there's plenty of people who respect the traditions, and all those things are meant to exist in the same space, in my opinion. That being said, I think that we're seeing this like slow turn back to like, now we have to address what all this means, like what style means as a whole. Whereas like, I feel like Japan always respected designers, especially its own designers, because they were culturally important.
Totally, yeah.
And there wasn't as many. And especially the way fashion was exclusionary, it was basically European. I mean, it was like, that's why the houses are the houses. And, that's why Comme des Garçons is not a Japanese name. It's called Comme des Garçons because it needs to fit into the box of this stupid thing that they invented a million years ago. Yeah. And I think that's, in my opinion, I think maybe, I don't know if this is true or not, this is my view of it, that Japan respected their designers greatly because they didn't have as many and they weren't as pronounced. So it's kind of this like group dynamic of like, these are our designers. We really love them. We respect them and we respect the art collectively. And because of that, their fashion followed a higher calling where it wasn't about individualism. It was about respecting the designers and seeing the like silhouettes drip down to even fast fashion. I think that's why Uniqlo, especially Uniqlo in Japan, before they, started expanding as much as they have. But back in the day with Uniqlo, like when that first arrived in New York, that was in, I think, the early 2000s. And I had to, if you wanted things from Uniqlo, they were, first of all, they weren't necessarily cheap. They were just cheaper for higher quality.
For what it was, yeah.
And you could look at some of it online, but you couldn't buy it online. Or you could get something sent to you, or you could look at the Japan site. And then you would call into the thing. They would say, okay, great, my name's so-and-so, write me an email. You would write an email with the things you wanted and your credit card information. And then they would send you what they were able to get. And it would be like packed by some random person that picked up the phone. You know what I mean? Sometimes. Half the time I would send those emails, I would never get anything. And you would just wait and hope that you got something. And you could never budget for it because you never knew what was going to get
what you were going to. That's fascinating.
And it was a different thing. But the reason I did it at the time was because you couldn't get those silhouettes and those looks without paying for a high-end designer, which I had no access to or no money for.
Yeah.
So that was the first time. And I think that like that's sort of what they've been on for a long time, where they were always honoring this kind of like more zoomed out version of fashion of like watching this, what the silhouette was and the material was and how it honored their culture or history or whatever it is. And so it just trickled through their culture faster, in a more like even way, as opposed to ours has been the way people came into fashion is so buckshotted from all over the place.
Yeah.
And the type of designers because we've had a lot of the luxury stuff here for a long time.
Yeah.
So we've had like that influence, but we also have Ralph Lauren. We also have the influence of different music stuff like punk or hip hop or whatever it is. And all those influences. So we have so much individualism here that's been so mashed into our thing for so long that sometimes it's hard to define at all. You know, it's hard to define like what does American culture's fashion look like. I don't know that I know. And I think now because the mass majority is the fashion is so ugly, quite frankly, or so generic or, Amazon that you can't like, you know what I mean? Like, what is it? You know, I don't know what it is.
You can't put it on on a tee or
I don't know how to define it at all. I don't think anyone really knows how to define it. And that can be both looked at a high level of fashion as like good or as that middle ground is like not great.
Yeah.
Whereas like, it doesn't seem as different in Japan to me. It feels like everyone's on the same page, you know?
No, it does.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe it is that kind of like group think, like where it's like if everyone else is dressed that way, like of course you're gonna be there too, even if you don't even care about fashion or like,
of course
you just want to look good, you know, or you want to be like maybe it's the same idea of like us talking about like the kind of safe way to go. It's like maybe as a Japanese person, I obviously don't have perspective, but like maybe that's the safe way to go. It's like I just need to dress this way to kind of be. But then I also know that there's like when I was there and being in Tokyo and like all the main Osaka and Kyoto and stuff, it's like you see the people that like stick out a little more. They have a little more like little more accessories or something just a little, and you're like, oh, okay, he or she looks incredible. And but I really agree. I mean, that was beautifully said. I feel like what you just said on just
Look,
kind of
it's what the great thing about all this is it's all just subjective. I have these are just like thoughts that I've had when I was there of like, why does this feel different? You know what I mean? Because in some ways it feels almost, there's so much more sameness.
Yeah.
But in like a positive, like it's like the taste level overall is higher.
Yeah.
As opposed to the homogenous being like the taste level is lower.
Yeah.
But that feels more like what it is here. You know what I mean? Where it's like less people. And I'm sure that there is economic reasons that's the issue. I think that the way culture is permeated here or rejected in a lot of different ways, especially now, it doesn't feel as universal. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that there's all sorts of also people could jump in here and tell me all the different reasons culturally why it's like, same or different, that I don't know. But I also think that does create a unique perspective also if you go there for the first time with no background. I mean, the same way I would imagine coming here for the first time would feel the same way.
Yeah.
You see those videos of people, people from different countries coming here and like loving like weird stuff that you're like, what on earth? Why
you're like,
yeah. So I do think sometimes that like, zoomed out perspective really helps you appreciate culture as a, as a unifying thing.
Totally.
Which is really cool. Which is probably why we're all so fascinated. But at the same time, like, it's a cultural leader in that way for a reason,
Totally.
But I don't know what the reason is. But it's really pleasant being there, aesthetically for a lot of reasons. That it's insanely. I mean, everyone talks about how insanely clean and like considerate people are, and it's very different from here in those ways. And there's all those reasons, but also there's just this mindfulness around clothes that I've just never seen anywhere. I mean, even if you go to New York, for example, it's, yes, you see more of it than usual.
Yeah,
people dressed well is more the norm than anywhere else. I think a couple factors there. One, in New York, there's no suburbs, there's no blah, blah, blah. You're not spending most of your time at home. You have to be out and about. So there's a mindfulness that inevitably happens by just needing to be out and about a bit more and not in your car or whatever. So you're less hidden from the world. So you sort of think a little bit more in that way.
Yeah.
Also access to different cultures and different things blending together is obviously going to make all aspects of music, art, fashion, blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff is going to be more elevated because you're allowing the blending of more people and more cultures, and that's going to make things better. It just does. It speeds up the process. So I don't know. I don't know also if because Japan's a little less diversified than we are in certain parts of the United States, that maybe it's slower in a way, positively or negatively. Like maybe that's why there's a little bit more, sameness across the board. I don't know, but like it just seems like everyone's on the same team. You know what I mean? If that makes sense, where it's like we all like the same stuff. We might just like different avenues of it. But even when you look at like, you go into like these, like let's say North Face, for example. You go into that brand and it has this very specific aesthetic that sort of permeates across all categories. And if you hop over to, I don't know what you want to name, another big company that's like here but there.
I'm trying to think what.
I don't know why I'm suddenly having troubles with something like this.
I'm
but
trying to think here.
You go over there and it's like, but it is like that aesthetic. The aesthetic, and I don't know if it's the shapes or it's the overall like minimalist approach to things or what it is. It will go from place to place and it all feels kind of similar. Like it could all go together. It's just different interests and different, utility-minded stuff or something like that. But
their own.
It's interesting. I don't know how you get on the same page like that. I think it's kind of nice to see, but that's definitely how it influenced me, is just like the everydayness of nice clothes, and that consideration it really made me think like, I need to wear my clothes more. I need to be in them more. I need to like have that be a secondary part of what I'm doing, not just I put on these clothes and these are the brands I like.
Yeah.
It's almost less like about signaling something. It's probably, maybe it's this. Maybe it's a little less signaling, this is the designer I'm wearing. You know what I mean? Even if you're talk about niche community versus non-niche community, it doesn't matter, whatever version of it. I think it's a lot of like, I wear these jeans and this thing, and these say something about me because these brands have a specific thing they want to say.
Yeah, totally.
Whereas if you get away from that and more look, I want myself to come through in these clothes. So here are my aesthetic choices, and these are the things that matched those. That's the approach I want to try to come from, because that's what I felt like is in Japan, is like the clothes were secondary to the function, but there was but it created this nice like, I don't know, this like more cohesive look that felt like, man, that person is just so stylish in those clothes,
Oh my God,
I don't even know what they are.
Yeah,
it's harder to like define what things were.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think that's one thing I love too, is it's not like the brand, they're not repping like hardcore, like this is my Balenciaga shirt, and like and I love that, where it's it's like, is it vintage, is it new, do you have no idea, and I think like the mixture there, I also love the seasonal component too, where it's like all the linens that are worn, and it's a lot of natural fibers. And I know they have like the crazy like hype beast, like like Gorp Core kind of like those different types of brands. But like I went in September, it was hot as shit. It's like 107, with humidity.
It's sweaty,
and it was like seeing like women, like a lot of the women there were wearing still long linen dresses. And I was just like, it's brilliant because it's such a breathable fabric. And, men too, they have those crazy, like fanned out, they have like built-in fans, air conditioned jacket. But they all wore natural fibers, was what I mostly saw.
Yeah,
and
that's a very interesting point.
And I feel like, in America, we're maybe getting there in some ways, but I just feel like right now it's like polyester. It's nylon, it's polyester, it's stretchy material, it's comfortable in that way, right? They Lululemon is great in its own way for its own reason. They do stuff good, but I think it just blew me away on.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point.
Yeah, like they just dressed, where I feel like here
it's a different material choice across the board. I think, and I think the same way that like a lot of the food is so different, or people say they go to Italy and eat more food, but it's less processed. There's less. There's more regulations on that type of nasty shit they put in food, and I think it's the same thing with clothes, where it's like, look, I understand why people wear yoga pants and stuff. It's comfortable as shit. Anyone who's worn athletic wear in any single way to go to the gym, it's comfortable. It's easy to wear. The technology that's advanced at this point makes it a whole different thing, and it's great. But that it doesn't lean. It doesn't create interesting aesthetic choices, in my opinion. It's very bland.
Yeah,
it leans towards wearing a lot of hard colors rather than soft colors.
Exactly, yeah.
And it just doesn't because of what you're wearing, there's no reason to. I don't know. I do wish that, look, and I think that especially if anyone's paid attention to any of the runway that's gone on in the past couple weeks, really, is there's especially from a designer perspective, there's a movement towards this like reintroduction of elegance and sexiness and prettiness into clothing across the board.
Totally.
Whether it's women's, men's, whatever it is. I just an hour ago met with Le Maire. They're definitely pushing that to an extreme. Or Lee being another one that got so much amazing praise, and it well deserved. I mean, this was their most fully realized thing that they've done, and it is this emphasis on natural material and minimalist approach. It's very Japanese, but through a new lens, and I think that's what will get more and more interesting as things go. Of like, that's what I feel like we're missing in America, and unfortunately, I think that. We kind of have a lack of good American designers right now. Is part of it.
Totally.
There's nobody really like representing what I think is maybe the new. I don't know how to word it. Like, I think at a point like Ralph Lauren spoke to the overall American ideal of a luxury brand or like our fashion as a whole, where it represented working class to a certain degree, and it did and mindfulness of America's history. While introducing like sport and luxury and a higher end materials. And it spoke to America as a whole.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what designer that's American that I could say that is really, truly kind of carrying that torch right now.
Yeah, there's like not.
Whereas like Orly sort of does feel like it's doing a very good job at sort of representing a new approach to Japanese design.
Totally.
I think that just using Le Maire, because I just talked to them, Le Maire has this very like, new approach to French design, which is a more kind of Japanese approach, but still through the lens of French design. And it almost is like slowly, and maybe this is just because of where we work and what we do, I feel like Japanese has become the new leader, the thought leader in fashion. I think it's always been a thought leader in fashion, but it feels like that's permeated like I feel like if you walk around and a lot of average normal people would be like, oh, Japanese denim's the best or Japanese fashion's the best or whatever it is, like because it has become the like thought leader. And I think that's amazing because they did it without, in a lot of cases, the newer designers have done it without being super loud. And I think that's really difficult in this space.
Yeah.
Understanding that like tradition and fabric and approach and like especially a minimalist approach would be louder than like anything else.
Yeah, no, I totally
And I think
agree.
Orly this season is really, for me, it's like the perfect example of that. Is like it's a less is more thing. And it really stood out in that like if it chose color, it was very specific and it made an impact even without being with being like a soft pastel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you do it the right way, it's just so much more impactful than like just being loud for loud's sake, which is where fashion felt like it had kind of gotten to.
Yeah. And I feel like even like just from a cultural standpoint, I feel like there's this like, 2 years ago, I feel like Succession, I feel like was like a big push for it, was that like old money aesthetic, right? That it's like going away from where I feel like for, years it was like you see rappers and you see all these like, big celebrities repping these brands and, and then I feel like
there was a very clear association between what a lot of money bought you, if that made sense.
No, that's a perfect way to put it. Yeah, of like, that's a Louis Vuitton bag. That's synonymous. The monogram, whatever it is, Madagascar monogram, whatever the fuck that thing is. It's like easy to know in it. And I feel like now with this obsession of quiet luxury or like, I feel like Japanese fashion fits it so well. And it does it in maybe a way that's not like Loro Piano, that's, high quality shit, but it's very expensive. It's not like a $900 shirt, that.
They're all, Brunello Cucinelli, a lot of these brands that kind of always done that thing have a very European approach to them still. And they have a very like specific customer that they've been catering to for so long. And that customer is often older. And I think that because that customer is often older, that is not, it's not going to allow, it's tough for those brands to push the boundaries while still serving their customer, if that makes sense. I think that's a really tough place to be. And I get it. I mean, if you're in charge of that business, what do you do? You're like, we have this great core customer. Will they be there forever? I don't know. Or they might slow down their buying habits. And we can still serve that customer base well, and that can still serve us well as a business. But is it moving the needle for the brand little by little? And that's a tough choice to make where it's like, what do I do? Do I spend the next 10 years in the black, or do I go thread for a couple of years because I want to make a point and I want to evolve it.
Yeah.
And then, if it pays off in a couple of years, we'll start making more money. But I can't promise that. And there's a time where you're like, why stop making money unless the fear is in 10 years it's dead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, that's a tough call to make. Whereas like, I think that the stakes for Orly are almost different. It's like they're approaching that customer and saying, we still have something for you, but we can serve both. We can very eloquently like, dodge between that customer and serve that customer with beautiful fabrics, classic details, silhouettes everyone's comfortable with, while still being able to like, you can still shake things up with like certain color splashes or certain material changes or, they're really good at like making a couple pieces here and there. Like, I don't want to say go viral because that's not their thing, but like, like it'll be a piece where like, I've seen that piece 100 times. Like that's an Orly piece. Like I'm making that iconic association,
totally.
With some of their mohairs and some of their like, field jackets and stuff like that. So it's I'm just pointing at them because they're an easy one off of what we talked about, but there's plenty of brands that are sort of like, I think beginning to like permeate for the first time in a way where where they have something to say. I think the return to a point of view is going to be over the next couple of years in fashion, especially with how many designer changes they've been, and people aren't going down the celebrity designer route. They're not just going to rely on the social media presence. They're going to rely on people's interest in clothes, which I think is such a great return to form on servicing a customer, especially knowing we have a new customer, much wider, you know what I mean? Younger, older, all over the place, appreciate different things, know the heritages. This isn't a closed door party anymore. But we can still serve them in a new way. And we don't have to like, it doesn't feel like you have to talk dumb to people anymore. Like the average fashion consumer is so much more educated than they used to be.
Yeah.
And you might find that annoying that like, some boring kid in the Midwest now knows everything about Raph and his all his shit, and that's kind of it's like kind of an obnoxious, or even worse, that like even the more permeated version is some random, I don't want to get too specific here, but let's just say some boring ass person suddenly knows enough about Louis Vuitton to hold a conversation, and you're kind of annoying because you didn't give a shit before. But at the same time, that's better for the greater good that those people do know and appreciate, even if it's the they got the mall LV. That's fine, because before they would have never, no one would have ever paid for that shit, or they would have shit on it or ignored it, or So I think it's overall good for the fashion community. It's just this stuff takes a really long time to be super patient with it. The way Runway looked to me this year and all the changes that have happened, it makes me kind of hopeful for what I think fashion will look like over the next few years. Yeah. Which is cool. And then it'll get mixed up and be better for it. Yeah, and it'll get so it's all good. But
some crazy disruption somewhere in there.
Because it's been such a strong interest of mine for so long that I really appreciate the Japanese influence on fashion across the board. I really think it was like, it's been a long time coming that Japan deserved its shine for like how much deep influence it's had on fashion as a whole.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to see that in person for the first time a while ago when I first went, just to see that thing I'd kind of obsessed with, and Japan just delivers. It's like, it is exactly what you want it to
every
be.
Fucking way,
you know what I mean? It's really, there's few things in life that deliver, where you go and do them and you're like, that's okay. It wasn't what I thought it was. I maybe made it bigger in my head. Japan, you didn't. It's exactly what you...
No, it was better than... I mean, I just feel like they beat America in capitalism like tenfold.
Yeah.
Like they have it, and it was like coming back. It just kind of made me mad, honestly. And it's like we have it so good. I have a very privileged, incredible life, but it's just like everything there was just so much easier. It was cheaper. It was better. It tasted better. It was just like better in so many ways. And obviously, there's some stuff that maybe aren't, that isn't.
Of course, we don't know all the,
and obviously going there.
You're on vacation there.
You're like a king.
It's a different thing.
You got, the exchanges in our favor. So it's like you kind of have a lot of stuff going for us. But it just made me really open. And, I'm pretty well traveled, and I've, I backpacked Europe, and I've been around, not everywhere in the world. But it was definitely a place that I was like, yep, I want to be back here. Yeah. Like 100 more times at least, because it gave me the bug. And I guess I'm like a weeb, I guess now, but like I'm a weeb for Japan and not like an anime or like that kind of culture. It's like, no, and like the food, the clothes, the transportation,
it's hard to not kind of get obsessed with. And I think that What's really cool is to see whether they like it or not, all the tourism that's happened there. I think it's starting to bring some of those ideals and interests all over the place.
Yeah.
Which I think will be really cool to see, like the deeper influence that Japan will have on the rest of the world, like over time with how much tourism has happened. Because it's like hard to throw a rock and hit somebody who's not been to Japan suddenly.
Oh, yeah.
You know, whereas it used to be like, I only knew.
No one would go.
People in the fashion world I knew had been.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it.
But it wasn't like, where I feel like now, like Portugal for the past 3 years has been the biggest, oh my God, and then it's like always Italy. It's always the Eurocentric,
sure.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people going to Japan now.
Of course, yeah. I mean, well, and like you're saying, there's a lot of things in the favor of that way. And sure, like you're saying, like I'm not claiming that I have some deep knowledge of the culture, or but it is cool to see people that come back, and you really see people. I've met 3 people at this point now have gone once, come back, and then moved there permanently, or at least for like right now, permanently. Some amount of time. Like they don't have any intention of coming back at this time.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty.
I mean, something
for knowing 3 people that have done that, none of them, one in the fashion world, other 2 not entirely. Like it was just the culture resonated with them so deeply that it's why they wanted to live for at least a while. So it is really interesting to see, like, just to see what'll happen over time with as many people have visited and bring that back and put that into, like, I don't know, any aspect of their life,
Oh, totally.
Because there's also this sense of like calm there that we don't have here.
Oh, yeah.
You just don't realize until you come back and you're like, oh, it's
like, yeah,
it's place, dependent. So
no, you're so true. Because even in like, like Shibuya or like, the hugest, Shinjuku, whatever it is, right? That's super popular. It's like, there still was a calmness. Yeah. And I love that it would be, being on the East Coast and using the trains. It was just like, I love being on whatever, like a JR line or whatever, and it being dead quiet and everyone being so, cognizant of like what space they take up.
Sure.
And I love the individualism that we have in America, but I'm like, maybe we need a little less of it. Like maybe we need a little more balance.
Look, look, Japan's got areas where it could loosen up a little bit too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So I think
that's
the real, thing that you realize when you travel is just how much all of us could use to take, 10% from each culture and put into our own.
Exactly.
And the amalgamation should be better, which is what America should be known for. But it's, unfortunately less and less. But
we're here now.
But yeah, I think that that's the thing I always think was like, oh yeah, there's like just things you come back and you're like, I want to change a couple things about the way I'm thinking or living, and I think that's the reason you should travel in general. But because I'm not I don't love travel personally, but it's just an inconvenience thing to me. It's like I like my routines. I like the place I'm at. It's not necessarily bad things. It's just sometimes it can be hard. Like you got to go travel to do it, in my opinion, so that you can appreciate what you got back, and then bring 10% of whatever you learned.
Totally.
Yeah. But that thing you just brought up is something I think about a lot, and I wish I could remember who first told me about it. It was a long time ago. It was a friend in Chicago. I would love to call him out, but I can't think of who it was. But they talked about the thing. They had moved here when they were younger, and they said their dad always said, I wish Americans were more mindful of the space they took up.
Yeah.
And it's like, ever since I've thought about that, it's been like, yeah, we all do take up. We believe that our space should just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's like you want to make your space as big as humanly possible.
Yeah.
I think physically and mentally is what happens over time. Like, I deserve X amount, and this is how much. And it's like, to be more mindful about the people around you. And like, it's not about being small and, not social and things like that. It's just making sure you're not taking from people. You're putting in as much as you're taking.
Totally.
And you're being mindful of how much of that space you do take up. Because you don't need that.
You don't need it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't need it's a different mindset of, whereas America's more about how much can you take up, take it, because otherwise somebody else will take it.
Yeah.
And it's like, see, I wish we'd get away from that a little bit more. Like, no, we're all in this space together. It's kind of like whenever I'm at a nicer coffee shop where I'm like, we all came here as opposed to anywhere else because we have similar ideals about at least certain things that we consume or are interested in.
Yeah.
I feel like in Japan, that's how everyone feels, where it's like, that's how everybody feels about food and how it should nourish you and also have a fun element and be healthy and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And same thing with clothes is that it should serve utility, but should also be beautiful and mindful and smart, and you should support an artist.
Totally.
Everything feels a little bit more community oriented there than it does here, and I really like that and appreciate that, and I don't like that when I'm in a coffee shop here. It's like, why are we not all being nice to each other? We're all
we're all
similar people
yeah.
Well, you would kind of assume we are.
Yeah.
So like, we should all be on the same page here and all be like trying to support each other because, you know, more of us types are going to make the world better. You know, supporting small businesses, being mindful about what you consume, like things like that. But we're not there.
Yeah.
You know, so I really like how much travel I've seen there. Is, you know, as annoying it is to get a billion text messages, you know, being like, can you give me all your recommendations for so-and-so?
Oh my God. Yeah.
And, but it's really cool to see just how many people have like, I've come there and they come back and you can just tell it's like, I'm sort of a different person now. You know what I mean? It's an experience you kind of have to have.
Yeah. It's like I recommend it to anyone. Yeah. Anyone that travels, that's like a definite top 5 places. And my favorite Anthony Bourdain quote was like him talking about like, I'll paraphrase it, but it's like you could just die in Tokyo. Like you could stay there and you would be finding a new little, you know, and it's massive. It's
anything
crazy.
you like, they have the most extreme version of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they have people that appreciate it more than you do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And to the degree at which you wish it was.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like when you go look at like guitar pedals and stuff, you're like, this is the level I wanted to be
exactly.
at. You know what I mean?
No,
this is how I feel in my head.
No.
So I really, I mean, it's so in the zeitgeist anymore, but I really do think it's such a unique experience that if you have the opportunity, you should
do it. Yeah. And for you could talk about like all the recommendations, like for the listeners, there in the Discord, there's definitely it's like a Google Maps.
Oh yeah, if you're not in the Discord and you're interested in going to Japan,
just
join the Discord just to do that because a million, pretty much everyone in there has been, and they're all, you know, people with a certain taste level. So that's the group you want to ask. But I think they have like an ongoing thing, right?
Yeah, and it's I forget who like started it or who recently shared it, but I mean it's like a comprehensive for Tokyo specifically, and it's like, you know, that's a great way to know. And yeah, so get in that.
Yeah.
If you're not already.
How are we doing? We're doing good on time. Let's go over what do we got going on this week. We have, like we said, we have kind of a weird week because it's a little bit of a transitional week and we got in and out. But I think that we've got some things due in. I'm gonna go through them. Camille Fortune's on the way. First delivery of Camille.
Yeah.
That should be, I don't know if it'll be this week, end of this week, beginning of next week.
Yeah, Chase he was texting about
that. I just saw that their most recent collection too. I think we'll see how they keep progressing, but I really love what they're doing. I just think it's so unique and so different, but it also is just the right amount of unique where anybody can still wear it.
Yeah, totally.
So, I've been loving it. I bought a couple pieces, and I've just like now I keep, as much as I keep trying to not get too focused on one brand, I'll just keep looking at it's like 8 things I want there. First delivery of La Mer. This is a big week for me personally. First week of I don't remember what's in it. I think it's probably some more of the core restocks, but it's some of the new stuff as well. That collection is really great. So that should be, maybe that's more next week, but on the way. Beam's keychain restock.
Oh, dang. Okay.
People have been asking, those things go instantly. So if there's any of those you've been looking for,
they've been flying.
hop on to the website, look up the one you're looking for and sign up for the restock notice. Because I got everything I could, but it's not everything.
Not everything. Okay.
And it's in limited numbers. Rototo, that's getting delivered. So if you're in need of stocks, there's a bunch of great ones there. A little bit more of like a simplified approach. So if you like what they do, but don't do patterns and stuff as much, I think you're going to love this selection because it's a little bit more of the straightforward stuff.
Oh, okay.
There's a great 3-pack that I believe is in this one where you actually get, it's all the same color, but there's different weights and different styles, but they almost look the same, if that makes sense. Oh,
that's sweet.
So it's like an easy way to have like a few different options in one purchase. Full Popeye restock, that's on the way. So it'll have Brutus and Casa Brutus and I forget what else, Premium and obviously Popeye. So that's on the way. And then Nana Mika says it's going to get delivered today. I didn't look to see if it actually got delivered, but that's at least partial delivery of that will arrive, and I think the rest arrives shortly after that. And that's when people have been waiting on a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Other thing I wanted to point out, should be soonish. Maybe this is next week. Comme des Garçons put out a really great comprehensive look at their whole parfum collection. So this is like walks you through all the different advertisements, all of the different inspirations, all the different like iterations things have been through. It's a really like interesting look at like how, because that's been going on for a long time now.
Oh yeah.
So it has this unique history. It has all the one-offs in it, all the rare stuff. So if you're a big collector of it or have been a fan for a long time, this is a really cool book. That is on the way as well. We're really excited about that. I think that's everything. I know there's like shoes. I think Asics, New Balance, Crocs, all of
some
that.
Hokas,
all that stuff is getting dropped here and there. Some of them have special releases. Some of them
I think what
not.
Else? We got some Marnie stuff too yesterday.
A little bit of Marnie.
Just like a couple.
Yeah.
Shirt, crossbody bag.
Just keep an eye as always on new arrivals. That's happening.
Yeah, some new shoes.
What else? I think we've got some new YouTube videos, like new concept kind of stuff coming out this week. I think Chase and I did one about kind of Puebco, which I believe we've talked about on the pod. It's this great home collection from Japan that uses recycled materials and everything.
Yeah.
We had it the first time and it sold out so fast there wasn't worth doing a video. So we restocked, did an interesting video where we kind of pulled some of our favorites. So if that's something you're interested in, I think that's on YouTube now. And I think there's something else coming out this week. I think it's like a styling video or his Orslo video actually.
You did the Boro one got dropped too, right?
No, we didn't. Boro one's not done.
Boro's not done. Okay.
We did 2. I can't remember what they are now.
I know it's been
it was a long week last week. I think the one this week is the Orslo one, which is basically we took everything from our restock that we got. By the way, if you haven't looked over, that's all restocked and stuff is going really fast. So
there's some
things you had in mind
almost sold out.
We did we had somebody try on all the different pairs, talk different reasons, like why you'd buy one or the other, what the different details are. It is, I'm assuming, a long video because it took forever to do, but you can check out that.
Yeah.
What else? I mean, that's everything.
Yeah, because everything else we covered.
Yeah.
With like CDG, all the different.
Chase, when he's back, we'll do a video about. We'll kind of go over sort of the fall buying thing because we're just starting to like. I don't want to say we haven't wrapped it up. We just got a little bit more to do, but we've seen a lot of stuff, so we can kind of jump in and talk about like things that excited us, and so that's something people can look forward to. Other than that, business as usual. Yeah, check out the site, follow us on Instagram. Like we said, if you haven't joined the Discord, join that. Yeah, Patreon's still up and running, and I believe end of week. If you're hearing this on Thursday, probably tomorrow or today, I don't know. Patreon should get early access to the next round of sales. So,
sweet. Okay, so that's gonna
have that too. So another reason to jump in.
Yeah.
Other than that, Cole, I appreciate you doing this, pal.
Yeah.
Jumping in here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we'll be back to business as usual going forward. And I don't think there's anything else I need to say.
I think
we're good.
Yeah, I think we're good.
We're good.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
And we'll see you soon.
Well, thank you guys.
Bye.